All right, hi everyone. Welcome to this edition of Believe in Sabres. I'm Adam Benigni of WGRZ TV and Sports Talk by Buffalo. Sal Maiorana of the Rochester Democrat and Chronicle, who is back to his usual beat there in the media room out in Orchard Park. This is Believe in Sabres, presented by FanDuel, as we react to, Sal, I guess what's an all too familiar feeling for those of us who've covered Buffalo sports for a long time, and obviously the many passionate fans that make this area so special. Another one comes to an end in such a painful fashion last night, Game 7, in that loss in overtime to the Montreal Canadiens.
Yeah, Adam, look, it seems like it's never going to end for the fans of Buffalo. This, between the Bills and the Sabres, there's just been so much heartbreak and despair and awful losses. And I got to put last night's game in that category. They were the better team from the end of the first period on. They were the better team in that game. A lot of credit to have scored the 2 goals to get the game to overtime. And then even in the overtime, they had prime opportunities to win it. And again, they don't finish. And another Buffalo team goes home before it should have. I think the Sabres should have moved on to play Carolina. It's just really, again, it's got to be just sickening for fans to have to go through it again. I mean, do we have a new nickname loss here? Do we call this one quick whistle?
Right.
Because for Christ's sakes, it was a quick whistle, man.
It was.
I mean, who knows if they go on and win the game? They would have had the lead with 10 minutes to go. But I mean, that was a quick whistle. That goal should have counted. And here we go. It didn't count and they lose the game. And
what's so frustrating is not just last night, but that was a continuation, right, of what had happened really as this series progressed. They became the better team.
Yeah.
And I suppose if you're going to fault him, Lindy Ruff pushed so many of the right buttons with this team this year, more than I think I've ever seen him, including his first stint here. I mean, what he did was truly remarkable, and he should win the Jack Adams Award for Coach of the Year. But it took Buffalo too long, whether it was whatever happened earlier in the series, and then certainly in Game 6, the JFG mantra, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that, even if it's that mentality or whatever, to get over whatever hesitation they had, right? We certainly saw it happen quickly in Game 6, and it took them a while. But after they fall behind 2-0, you could really see, for the remainder of the first period, and certainly for the balance of the game, the second and third period. Overtime maybe leveled out a little bit, but in the second and third, they absolutely dominated them.
Look, I mean, there was that key moment late in the first period. It was 2-0, and I think it was Anderson who came in on the breakaway. Was that the one?
Yeah, right.
It was Anderson, right? And UPL makes the save. I mean, if that one goes in, I think it's probably done. I don't think they're coming back from 3-0. That would have been just a gut punch. So to him, after he made that save, they get out of the first period. And then I thought early in the second period, Montreal was still kind of carrying the play a bit. But there was a point there, I forget exactly what it was, things started to change. You started to see Buffalo make a good push. They were getting opportunities. Mm-hmm. And then finally the goal that goes in off, Greenway's ass. And that sucks for Samuelson, because that puck was going in regardless, and it touches his pants and he doesn't get the goal. But anyway, as soon as that happened, man, you saw the building was alive. The Sabres really jumped alive at that point. And from that moment on, Adam, they owned this game. There was never a point after the Greenway goal where I thought the Sabres are going to lose. I just felt they were going to get the tying goal, and then they were going to get the winner. And again, we sit here today with another disgusting Buffalo sports loss. It just feels like it'll never end.
And what makes it more maddening is that last night they got the goaltending they needed right up until the end.
He was okay. He was.
He probably made Sal 3 or 4.
He stopped at least 3 breakaways. Right? I think he had 3 breakaways.
Big saves, maybe 5 big saves, right? To say, okay, I settled down because I'm like, okay, he's dialed in, right? This isn't the UPL, whatever. The state of his game is one that can carry them and keep them in this thing. And then the tide sort of turned in their favor. Now, the overtime goal from Newhook is just clearly a shot that it's a save he's got to make. You absolutely have to have that save.
That's the shame of it. We're all going to remember that shot. But really, I mean, the first goal was kind of a fluky pinball off the guy's foot. And the second goal, okay, maybe he makes a save there, but it was a tough. I mean, the guy was in a prime spot to score. What are you going to do?
Oh, and right? The pass. I mean, the pass was absolutely incredible, too. I mean, you got to credit Montreal. They have offensive gifts, and they used them on that play.
So you can't fault them on that one. But the last one, you're going to stew about it until the season starts again next year because it's a shot he needs to stop. That was not a good goal. And what's so aggravating about that, Adam, is what the hell? I mean, Dahlin played great. He played great these last two games. What the hell was he doing at the blue line on that? I mean, he winds up for the slap shot and changes his mind. Okay, at that point, dump it in the corner or do something, but don't do what he did. Don't play with it out there at the blue line. And then Thompson didn't help him out either. Thompson had a chance to regain control. He whiffs, and then away they go in the winning goal. It's just, hockey is one of these games where you could really break it down to these micro moments that matter so much. And there was one of them. It looked like a completely nothing play, and it ends up ending your season. It's just, and he was right. Dahlin was right. One shot, it just sucks. Your season ends on one shot like that.
You know what? If they're guilty of something, and they're guilty of a number of things, despite how great their turnaround was this year, but turnovers at the offensive blue line would be one of them, right? Yeah. So I suppose, I mean, you're in the NHL, especially with a great transition team that's every bit as quick in transition as you are. And the Montreal Canadiens, you're smoking in the proverbial dynamite shack when you handle the puck like that at the blue line, and that was the case for as great as Dahlin's year was and what he did in the series and scoring again last night, and the defensemen, how they've contributed offensively and how they've made this team so tough to defend this year. A turnover like that. And as Ray Ferraro said on the broadcast, and he's right, I know that, with the accusations of favoritism and all of that the guy drove Sabre fans crazy, but he was spot on when he said, just get the puck to the net. And it speaks to the point you just made. And the one that Dahlin had made coming out of Game 6, where you just sort of simplify things. And it's just that momentary hesitation. And what maybe Ruff was talking about with the JFG mindset, attitude, he saw them hesitate offensively too much, and he wanted them to change that where he'd rather see a mistake in the form of aggression than indecision or hesitation. Well, it was indecision and hesitation that ultimately set up the game-winning goal. So,
and we saw it again last night, Adam. This team all year, that they've been such a dynamic offensive team, and there was no doubt this was a really great skating, fun offensive team to watch. But there are just moments in these games where they overpass and they try to get too cute. Zucker coming down on the 2-on-1. I mean, Dobish looked like he was giving him the whole short side, just snap the puck. And then you had the guy driving to the net on the 2-on-1. Maybe there's a rebound. No, he waits and waits and waits. The defenseman slides across, meaning the pass is impossible, and they waste it. Then Thompson in the overtime. Like, what the hell? What the hell was he doing? Yeah. He's coming in 2-on-1 with speed, right? The defenseman is leaning towards the other guy, taking away the pass. He's one of the best shooters in the NHL. What the hell are you doing? Toe dragging, and then ended up being two guys because the other guy was coming. So now he's got two guys on him. He's trying to toe drag through both of them. Never gets a shot up. I mean, that's the stuff. We were going nuts about Quinn earlier in the series doing that too much. Those are the little things. I mean, it just was so frustrating. Their hesitancy sometimes to just shoot the puck, get it on net, and good things happen when the puck goes on net.
And that speaks to sort of the enigma that Tage Thompson has been in these playoffs, right? You look at the score sheet where he ranks in terms of overall points and production right near the top, right, among all players in the postseason. But
break it down, though.
That doesn't tell the story. It doesn't tell the story.
You got a goal off the stanchion. You've got an empty net goal. You've got a bunch of secondary assists that, secondary assists are what they are. It's not the primary assist. So, he had a lot of points, but, I mean, I'm not in the locker room. Neither are you, but I'm sure he's going to tell the reporters when he finally meets to end the season that he did not play well in this postseason. There were too many moments where he just wasn't a superstar, and Buffalo needed him to be a superstar. Now, again, we might find out that he's hurt and that was impacting him. I'm probably sure that's correct. It probably was something. I don't know, but he was not the superstar that he needed to be. And you look at the numbers, and yeah, he had the second most points so far in the postseason, but some of that's a little bit sketchy too.
Yeah, right. Stats don't always tell the story, and that's especially true in Tage.
You got to look beyond the box score sometimes. And anybody who watched the series knows that was not the Tage Thompson who has been Buffalo's probably he is their best forward over the last 3 or 4 years. That wasn't the player we saw in this postseason. People can argue about that with me and call me an asshole or whatever, but that's just how I feel. And I don't think I'm alone in that opinion.
No. Speaking of looking at the stat sheet and delving into what story that it actually tells, you look at Alex Tuch, right?
Yeah.
And what does this say about him? Aging, obviously, looking for that long-term 8-year contract or whatever, whether he's dealing with a confidence problem, an injury, a combination of the two. They needed so much more from him. And I was, obviously we're all hoping Buffalo, within the journalistic standards that we, uphold watching these games and reporting on them. But I'm like, if Buffalo's going to win this thing, I'm hoping that Tuch scores it, because it would be just a storybook type thing or whatever. But he ultimately wasn't able to overcome what he needed to in this series. And if we're going to have a discussion about Tage Thompson, we certainly have to have a discussion about Alex Tuch, right?
We do. Look, I mean, Dahlin was really good. There was clearly a few mistakes, but I thought he was really good the whole postseason. And Tage was good for parts of it, not nearly good enough. But Alex Tuch, he was good against Boston. I'm not going to he played well against Boston, but it's crazy, especially in a series like this. It'd be one thing if it was Carolina, which we know is going to give Montreal all kinds of problems because they could lock it down. They would have given Buffalo a lot of trouble. There was not going to be time and space in that next series. But Tuch should have been able to take advantage of playing against a Montreal team that's going to skate up and down. And you can do things against them. And how do you have no points in a 7-game series? And here's the other frustrating thing. He's one of their best two-way players. And it seemed like the lack of offense was affecting him in the defensive zone. He just wasn't the same player. He wasn't the same player on the forecheck, and he wasn't the same player coming back playing defense so well, which he usually does. His whole game was screwed up. And I think Lindy might have been right. I think he had a confidence problem, being snake bit there a bit. And it cost them, because they needed Alex Tuch, like Tage Thompson. They needed Alex Tuch to be, the guy who's played in a Stanley Cup final. And it wasn't him. He just didn't do it for him. That's really, really frustrating. And if that's the last thing we see of him, it's too bad, because he's been one of those guys that he survived those down years. He's been a Sabres fan all his life. He really enjoyed playing here. And to have it probably end like that, because I can't see them paying what he's going to try to get in free agency, that's really kind of a drag on the whole thing.
It really is, because he did so much from a leadership standpoint, leading by example and off the ice, to help unlock the incredible potential that's existed in this organization for far too long, with all these high-end players and high-end picks. I feel like Tuch, when he was at his best for the balance of the regular season, and certainly in the Boston series, he was arguably among the best players on the ice. That he did so much to impact the youth and help them come of age, right, and realize that potential, that for him to kind of fizzle out the way he did in this series against Montreal, to your point, it's tough to take. I want to get back to goaltending a little bit here. And we're going to do a season-ending episode after the press conferences to kind of put everything in perspective and talk more specifically about what changes need to be made, what they need to do, get into free agency and all of that, right? That really isn't the purpose of this show. This is to reflect on the series and what happened in Game 7. But it's obvious, looking at these playoffs, I mean, UPL was in large part the answer until the overtime goal in that one last night. But between he and Lyon, look, ultimately the rotation failed them in the playoffs.
Yeah,
and I feel like they need to address that, because they've tied up resources in Luukkonen. I don't know that he's the answer to get them over the top and to get this team through a conference final into the Stanley Cup. What I've seen from him, I certainly saw a lot from him during the regular season, But in the playoffs, when it matters most, I mean, this is an education, right? And the Stanley Cup is a process, as John Muckler once said. And I think as we zoom out and talk about this team, this is certainly a massive step in that direction. Way more positives than negatives to talk about in terms of the trajectory of this franchise. But you need a goaltender that can carry you in the postseason. And I don't know that UPL or Lion is that at this point.
I mean, look, Adam, you need two goaltenders during the regular season. You have to. It's unusual for a guy to play 60 games. A couple guys, like I think Vasilevsky is one of those guys who plays like 60 games a year. They lean on him. But in the NHL today, you need to have two. But in the playoffs, the old bromide, if you have two starting goaltenders, you don't have one. That is how the Stanley Cup playoffs are. You've got to get a guy. He's got to get hot, and you have to ride him. That's what the Canadiens have done with Dobish. He hasn't been great. I mean, he was pretty good against Tampa Bay. I'll give him that. But that was a low-scoring, tight series. This one, wide open offense, he was certainly not great in this series. There were many moments where the Sabres had his number, but they stuck with him. And look what happened. He played great. He stole that game. The Sabres had 39 shots on goal last night. They should have won the game. And there were several, unlike previous games where you kind of wonder where the high danger chances, they had a ton of high danger chances last night, and he stiffed them all night long. So, Buffalo's got a problem. I don't know where you go with it. I mean, you're kind of invested with UPL, but come on, man. He's a good guy to have on the team as your backup, the guy who plays, once a week. They need to go out and get an actual stud goaltender. I don't know where you find them, Adam. I mean, teams just don't give those guys away. I am not nearly as, in tune with NHL free agency. I have no clue who's out there. I mean, I'm barely handling football, so I have no clue who would even be available on the free agent market. But they need to get a guy who's their number one goalie. It's clear and obvious to me.
Well, in terms of, and again, we're going to have the season ending discussion, and we're going to delve into those issues. Look, Kevin Adams deserves a lot of credit for amassing a lot of the talent, but I feel like they have a GM in Jarmo Kekäläinen who can really address some of those issues that you just raised with the experience he has, right? They need experienced hockey leadership. They have him. It took too long to get him into that position, but I feel like they have a guy who can, clearly it's rare you see a change of GM have the impact, right, that did on this team. Now it's the opportunity for him to take another step in a full offseason. He made some moves at the trade deadline. Look,
and it wasn't good. I mean, let's face it. It all felt good at the time, but when you look in hindsight now at what those moves actually produced, they didn't help. I mean, Stanley was kind of just a guy. Luke Shen, he was over the hill. Carrick came in and played well early, but, he got hurt. And even when he played the one game, he wasn't that good. So their trade deadline that Jarko engineered, he shot big with Polite, Colton Polite, or what is it, Parenka? What's his name? Right. The guy from, they tried to get him. That would have been awesome. And then Thomas, obviously, that fell through. And he settled for what he settled in getting. Those moves really didn't work out too well. He's got some huge decisions to make because they've got some young guys. I mean, Helenus has got to be on this team next year. You've got Osland, who's going to be on the team.
Has to be on the team.
Everyone forgets about Yuri Kulik. He should be back from injury. He was starting to really make himself known. They've got some big decisions that Jarko's got to make, but number one is the goaltender. He's got to get a real goaltender in here.
All right, so that's going to kind of wrap it up from this perspective. I will say this as we kind of look ahead now, where we both agree that it should be Buffalo taking on Carolina. It's going to be the Montreal Canadiens, and FanDuel, presenting sponsor for this show and others on the Believe network, has Carolina, as you would expect, as the favorite, minus 285. Montreal, the underdog, plus 230. Total games, the over-under's 5.5. I think that's probably going to be about right. I do feel that Carolina might be a little bit vulnerable given how long they've been off with some of the rust.
They haven't lost the game. They haven't lost the game, and they haven't played in 2 weeks.
And in game one, but their ability to shut things down really And they have the goaltending to back up that defensive style. I think it's going to present a lot of problems for a team like the Montreal Canadiens.
Look,
I would see Carolina winning that series, whether it was against Montreal or Buffalo.
Yeah.
Being realistic about it, 5-6 games, I think.
Yeah, I mean, look, Adam, we could be upset and pissed off if the Sabres season is over. But I mean, I'll be the Mr. Glass half empty like I always am. I really did not see a way that the Sabres were going to beat Carolina. I think Carolina is just going to be a wagon to beat, now that Montreal is going to be in there. I just don't see it happening. So maybe we're spared a little bit of further aggravation, but it's shit. It sure would have been nice to play at least 5 more games. That would have been fun. And then you get past them, and then you got Colorado. So look, it probably wasn't going to happen. The Stanley Cup drought most likely wasn't ending this year, but they deserved to get the third round. They deserved it, and it's really sad and aggravating that they didn't get the opportunity.
And whether they would have won it or not, to get the number of young kids for whom this is a first-time run through the playoffs, right? And even a guy like Rasmus Dahlin, right?
Yeah.
To get him in there and get that experience in a conference final again. I mean, I think the return on the investment of making it to the postseason, let's call it that, I think we're going to see next year significant return on this. I think you've seen this team develop.
There's going to be pressure next year, though, Adam, because they came out of nowhere this year. Now they're going to be faced with they're the defending division champion that made it to the Game 7 of overtime of Game 7 in the second round. There's going to be different expectations on the Sabres next year, so that'll be interesting to see how they handle that. But yeah, Ruff is right. I mean, this was a huge step in the right direction, just breaking the drought itself. It's like the Bills back in 2017. Didn't even matter that they scored a field goal against the Jaguars. They broke the drought. This is what the Sabres have done this year, and now you go from here. You've got a young, exciting team, and there's only room to grow, right? You add a couple guys on the veteran side in free agency, get the goaltender, and great things should be expected for the Sabres, but they're going to have to handle the increased expectations next year.
And they need to make changes, as we had said, but they have the organizational leadership. I think I mentioned this on one of our previous shows. Was at the end of 2002 or 2003 when they missed the playoffs by a single point, and Kevin Adams, who was guilty of falling in love with the team. Same thing that happened to Darcy Regier at the end of his run as GM here, right? And I think the players kind of sensed that. And the attitude moving forward was that they had basically arrived because they had missed the playoffs by a single point. You're not going to get that. The message from the top, from Kekäläinen and Ruff, is going to be anything but that. They've achieved a point where the playoffs are now the expectation. But what have they really accomplished, right? Yeah. I mean, they got a hell of a lot more work to do. And I think that's going to be the message. I think the organization, I guess my point is in a different place now. I feel as if the structure organizationally is one that can support continued growth into next year, provided they make the right changes. I didn't feel that way when Adams was running the show. I just didn't.
No, you're right. Look, the expectations have changed now. This year was all about ending the drought, getting into the playoffs. Winning a round was almost felt like a bonus. I mean, I think we expected them to win that first round series, but it was a bonus just to win the round, and then to almost get to the conference final is about all you could have asked for of this Sabres team. But next year, hey, they're on the hook now. It's Stanley Cup or bust. I'm sorry, it just is. They've got the team. They proved they scored 108 points in the hardest division in hockey this year. They have the team that can do this. You make a couple tweaks like we've been talking about the whole show here, and you are a Stanley Cup contender next year. And I know there's still going to be a young team, but that'll be the expectation from these fans in Buffalo. It's 56 years, man, with that team. And they've only been there twice and obviously lost it both times. So that's going to be what they're facing next season.
All right, so we're going to continue with Believe in Sabres periodically through the course when news breaks during the course of the offseason. We thank you for your support. This has been tremendously successful to the point where it's grown into its own show. We originally started this just to, because it was a downtime for the Bills, and due to the support from you, the listeners, viewers, this is going to be kind of its own thing moving forward. So we appreciate your support. We appreciate you tolerating the both of us because we can be very curmudgeon-y at times. And it's also back to the Bills. And before we wrap it up here, Sal, I know it's OTAs continuing. What's going on out there today?
Yeah, they started OTAs actually yesterday. Today's the first day we have some player availability. Joe Brady was just here in this room a few minutes ago speaking. Adam, I mean, I was joking with the guys who covered the game last night. It's like, this is quite a come down from game 7 to, this meaningless football nonsense in May. But this is part of what we do, and I'll be talking to a couple players today and write a few stories. But believe me, there's nothing happening here. As someone once famously said, it's practice, man. And it's practice in May for football. So this is really, really low-key stuff out here. But
look at you quoting Allen Iverson.
Yeah, there you go.
We're talking about practice.
Practice. Like I said, practice in May is different than practice in August. It's a big difference.
Where they're so restricted in terms of what they can do.
Well, just in the importance of it.
Yeah,
right. This is all a bunch of meaningless nonsense to me, but
sure,
it is different this year because they have a new head coach and a new defensive coordinator. So it means more this year than usual, but it's still May and it's football.
It is what it is.
Let's just calm down.
All right, we're going to let you get back to it because I know as we record this, they're at practice right now, and you'll have some additional work to do. We appreciate it. This has been Believe in Sabres, presented by FanDuel. For Sal Maiorana, I am Adam Benigni. Thanks for being with us.